What if your neighbor held a secret that could ruin your life? At just 18, Cristiano Ronaldo was chasing his football dreams when agent Sarah Collins moved in next door. One night, while practicing in the rain, he saw her hurriedly packing documents into a bag, looking terrified. The next morning, he overheard her on the phone saying, "We can't let him find out. It connects to his family." Cristiano's heart raced. What evidence? How was it tied to him? Little did he know, he was about to uncover a dangerous truth that would change everything. The sun was setting over the quiet streets of Funchal, Madeira, casting a warm golden glow that danced on the cobblestones. It was 2003, and the air buzzed with the sounds of children playing football, the distant laughter of families, and the rhythmic crashing of waves against the rocky shore. For many in the neighborhood, life was simple and predictable, but for Cristiano Ronaldo, things were about to get complicated. Cristiano lived with his mother, Maria, a strong and devoted woman who had sacrificed everything for her son's dream. Their tiny apartment was filled with trophies and pictures of Cristiano in his football kits, each snapshot a testament to his relentless drive. Maria worked long hours at a local restaurant, often coming home late, leaving Cristiano to fend for himself. He used this time to practice his football skills, spending hours dribbling and shooting in the small courtyard behind their home. Ronaldo's life revolved around football and his childhood friend, Leo Messi. They were inseparable, often dreaming of playing for the same team one day. Leo was more reserved, a quiet genius on the field, while Cristiano was passionate and fiery, always pushing himself to be better. Their friendship had a competitive edge, yet it was built on mutual respect and admiration. They spent countless afternoons kicking the ball around, sharing dreams of glory, and teasing each other about who would become the better player. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, a tension simmered. With every goal he scored and every scout that showed interest, Cristiano felt the weight of expectation. He wanted to make his mother proud, but he also feared the pressure that came with success. As the neighborhood buzzed with excitement about his potential, a darker shadow lurked nearby. Agent Sarah Collins had recently moved into the house next door. To the other residents, she was just another newcomer, but her presence sent a chill down Cristiano's spine. Sarah was a tall woman in her 30s, with sharp features and an intensity that made her stand out. She kept to herself, rarely engaging with the neighbors. When they did see her, it was usually as she hurried to her car or returned home late at night, always clutching a briefcase. Cristiano's curiosity about Sarah grew. He often caught her looking out the window, her gaze distant, as if she were watching something or someone far away. Maria, who didn't know much about their new neighbor, was too busy with work to pay much attention. But Cristiano felt a strange connection to her, as if she were guarding a secret that could disrupt their lives. One evening, while kicking the ball against the wall of their courtyard, Cristiano noticed Sarah standing outside, talking on her phone. He couldn't hear her words, but her expression was tense. The way she paced back and forth sent a shiver down his spine. He wanted to ask her what was wrong, but he hesitated, feeling a mix of fear and respect for her privacy. The next day, he spotted her again, this time leaving her house with a man in a suit. They were deep in conversation, and Cristiano could see the urgency in their gestures. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Why did she always look so worried? What was she involved in? As the days passed, the tension between their normal lives and the mystery of Agent Collins grew. Cristiano tried to focus on football, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman next door. With each passing moment, he felt as if he were standing on the edge of something monumental, unsure of what lay ahead. Little did he know that the connections between his life and Sarah's would soon intertwine, pulling him into a world filled with secrets, danger, and revelations that could change everything he believed about himself and his family. Cristiano had just finished practice one afternoon, the sun hanging low in the sky, painting the world in warm hues. He kicked the ball one last time against the wall of his courtyard, panting and exhilarated. Just as he was about to head inside, he noticed Sarah Collins standing in her yard, staring intently at the ground. Curiosity piqued, he approached cautiously. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out, trying to sound casual. Startled, Sarah looked up, her eyes wide. "Oh, Cristiano. Yes, I'm fine. Just lost in thought." He noticed she was holding a small torn piece of paper in her hand. "What's that?" he asked, pointing. "Just some old notes," she replied, quickly folding it and tucking it into her pocket. For a moment, Cristiano felt as if there was something more to her words, something she wasn't telling him. But before he could probe further, a loud crash interrupted them. The sound came from the street where a car had skidded to a halt, tires screeching. Cristiano turned to see a sleek black sedan parked awkwardly, its driver visibly agitated. The door swung open, and a man in a dark suit jumped out, looking frantic. "Sarah!" he shouted, rushing toward her. "We need to go, now!" Cristiano's heart raced as he watched the scene unfold. The man's urgency was palpable, and Sarah's expression shifted from surprise to seriousness in an instant. She glanced at Cristiano, her eyes darting with concern. "Stay here, Cristiano. This is important." But Cristiano couldn't tear his gaze away. He stood frozen, a mix of fear and curiosity gripping him. What was happening? Why did she need to leave so suddenly? Without waiting for an explanation, Sarah hurried into the car, and the man slammed the door behind her. The sedan sped off, tires screeching against the pavement. Cristiano felt a knot in his stomach. Something was wrong, and he needed to find out what it was. That night, he lay in bed, tossing and turning. Sleep wouldn't come. All he could think about was Sarah and the mysterious man. Why was she in such a hurry? What did they need to escape from? As thoughts swirled in his mind, he resolved to uncover the truth. The next day, Cristiano decided to follow her. It was a risk, but the curiosity was too strong to resist. After school, he lingered near his window, pretending to do homework while keeping an eye on Sarah's house. Hours passed, but finally, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, he saw her return. He quickly grabbed his jacket and slipped out the door, pretending to take a walk. As he approached her house, he noticed her talking to another figure, this time a woman with long hair dressed in casual clothes. They seemed to be in a heated discussion, glancing around nervously as if they were afraid of being watched. Cristiano inched closer, hiding behind a nearby tree. The woman pointed towards the street, her voice low and urgent. "We can't let them find out about the evidence. If they do, it's over for both of us." Cristiano's heart raced. Evidence? What evidence? He strained to hear more, his curiosity overpowering his fear. He was about to step closer when suddenly he heard a noise behind him. He turned to see Leo Messi walking down the street, a puzzled expression on his face. "Cristiano, what are you doing here?" Leo asked, glancing toward the house. "Shh," Cristiano whispered, waving him over. "You won't believe what's happening. Sarah's talking to someone about some kind of evidence." Leo's eyes widened. "Are you serious? What kind of evidence?" Before Cristiano could answer, the woman turned sharply, catching sight of them. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice sharp. Panicking, Cristiano and Leo darted behind the tree. "We need to go," Leo said, his voice urgent. "This is too risky." But Cristiano shook his head. "No, we can't leave. We need to find out what's going on." Just then, Sarah stepped out of her house, looking around as if sensing their presence. Cristiano's heart pounded in his chest. This was it, They were caught, but instead of confronting them, she turned and hurried back inside, leaving the woman standing there, looking frustrated and anxious. "What do we do now?" Leo whispered, glancing nervously toward the house. "I have to talk to her," Cristiano said, his determination firm. "I need answers." With a deep breath, he stepped out from behind the tree and walked toward the front door, Leo trailing close behind, unsure but unwilling to let Cristiano face this alone. He knocked, his heart racing as he waited for a response. The door swung open, and there stood Sarah, her expression a mix of surprise and caution. "Cristiano, what's going on? I saw you yesterday," he said, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside. "I want to know what's happening. What were you talking about?" For a moment, Sarah hesitated, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The tension in the air was thick, and Cristiano could feel the gravity of the situation. Finally, she sighed and stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. "Come in. We need to talk." As they stepped into her home, Cristiano's heart raced. He had crossed a line, but he was ready to face whatever truth awaited him. The stakes had never felt higher, and he knew that the answers Sarah would reveal could change everything he thought he knew about his life, his family, and the world around him. As Cristiano stepped into Agent Sarah Collins' home, he felt a chill run down his spine. The air was thick with unspoken secrets, and the walls, adorned with maps and photographs, seemed to watch him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had crossed a threshold into a world much darker than he had imagined. "Sit," Sarah instructed, her voice firm yet tired. Cristiano and Leo exchanged glances before taking seats at the small kitchen table. The room was cluttered, filled with papers, files, and what appeared to be surveillance equipment. It looked more like a makeshift command center than a home. "What's going on?" Cristiano asked, his heart pounding. "What were you and that woman talking about?" Sarah took a deep breath, her expression serious. "You're in this deeper than you realize. The woman you saw is my partner, Agent Lisa Harper. We're working on a case involving a powerful crime syndicate operating here in Madeira." Sarah leaned forward, her voice lowering. "A crime syndicate? What does that have to do with me?" Sarah leaned forward, her voice lowering. "There are connections, Cristiano. Your family, your mother, she might be unknowingly involved." "What?" Cristiano exclaimed, disbelief flooding his voice. "My mother? She's just a waitress. She has nothing to do with crime." "Maybe not directly," Sarah replied. "But we've uncovered evidence that suggests someone close to her has been involved in illegal activities. We suspect that this syndicate is using local businesses as fronts for their operations. Your mother's restaurant could be one of them." Cristiano felt the world tilt beneath him. It couldn't be true. His mother had always worked hard to provide for him. "You're wrong," he insisted, shaking his head. "She's innocent. Look, I understand how hard this is for you," Sarah said, her tone softening slightly. "But we can't ignore the facts. We need your help to uncover the truth. You're closer to her than anyone else. If we can get information from you, we might be able to protect her." Before Cristiano could respond, Leo interrupted. "What about the evidence you mentioned? What exactly are you looking for?" Sarah glanced at Leo, then back at Cristiano. "We believe there are documents hidden in your mother's restaurant, things that could connect her to the syndicate. If we can find those documents, we can expose the entire operation and keep your family safe." Cristiano felt a wave of anger surge through him. "You want me to spy on my own mother? To invade her privacy?" "It's not about spying," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "It's about protecting her. If this syndicate finds out that we're onto them, they might come after her. We need to act fast." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Cristiano felt torn. He wanted to protect his mother, but the thought of betraying her trust felt unbearable. "I need time to think," he said finally, standing up. "This is too much." As he and Leo left Sarah's house, the streets of Funchal felt different, darker, more ominous. They walked in silence, both grappling with the revelations that had just unfolded. "What are you going to do?" Leo asked, breaking the silence. "I don't know," Cristiano admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I can't believe my mum could be involved in something like this. It doesn't make sense. Maybe she doesn't know." Leo suggested, "But we have to find out the truth. If there really is something hidden in the restaurant, we should look for it." Cristiano nodded, still processing everything. "Okay, we'll go to the restaurant tonight after it closes, but we have to be careful." As night fell, they made their way to Maria's restaurant, a small, cozy place filled with the scent of garlic and fresh bread. The restaurant was closed, with only a dim light flickering in the back. Cristiano felt a pit in his stomach as they approached, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. Once inside, they crept through the empty tables, the silence amplifying every sound. Cristiano's heart raced as he thought about what they might uncover. Would he find proof of his mother's innocence, or something that would shatter his world? "Where do we start?" Leo whispered, looking around. Cristiano glanced toward the back office. "Let's check there first. If there's anything hidden, it's likely to be in her files." They tiptoed toward the office door, careful not to make any noise. Cristiano turned the handle slowly and pushed the door open. The small room was cluttered with papers, receipts and old menus. A single lamp flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the walls. "Help me look," Cristiano said, his voice barely above a whisper. They began rummaging through the files, sifting through old invoices and employee records. Time seemed to stretch as they searched, and just when Cristiano was starting to lose hope, Leo shouted, "Here, look at this!" Cristiano rushed over to see Leo holding a small weathered envelope. It was unmarked but looked old and worn. "What is it?" Cristiano asked, taking the envelope from Leo's hands. Leo carefully opened it, and they both peered inside. Inside were several documents, each filled with names, dates, and strange symbols. Some of the names were familiar. Local business owners, people Cristiano had seen in his mother's restaurant. "What does this mean?" Cristiano asked, his heart racing. "Are these people involved in the syndicate?" "I don't know," Leo said, examining the papers closely. "But it looks like they're connected somehow. We need to show this to Sarah." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the front of the restaurant. Both boys jumped, adrenaline pumping through their veins. "What was that?" Leo asked, panic creeping into his voice. "I don't know, but we need to hide," Cristiano whispered urgently. Quickly ducked behind the desk, holding their breath as they listened. The crash was followed by muffled voices, and Cristiano's heart sank as he recognized one of them. It was his mother. "Get away from me!" Maria shouted, her voice filled with fear. Cristiano's instincts kicked in. He had to protect her. "We can't just sit here," he whispered fiercely. We have to do something." "No," Leo insisted, gripping Cristiano's arm. "We don't know who they are. We need to wait and see." Cristiano felt a surge of anger. "I won't let them hurt her." Before Leo could stop him, Cristiano bolted from behind the desk and rushed toward the door. He burst out into the main dining area, where 3 men stood, their backs to him. They were dressed in dark clothing, and their demeanor was menacing. "Mom!" Cristiano shouted, his voice shaking. Maria turned, her eyes wide with shock. "Cristiano, Get back!" One of the men spun around, his face hardened with a sneer. "Well, well, if it isn't the little football star. You shouldn't be here, kid." "What do you want?" Cristiano demanded, his heart pounding. "Leave my mother alone." "Your mother is in over her head," the man said, stepping closer. "She's been working with people she shouldn't be, and now it's time to pay the price." "No, she's innocent," Cristiano shouted, desperation flooding his voice. Just then, Leo appeared behind Cristiano, trying to pull him back. "We need to go," he urged, but Cristiano wouldn't budge. "Enough," the man barked, his voice echoing in the empty restaurant. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice." Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling but defiant. "Let him go. He doesn't know anything about this." Cristiano felt a surge of protectiveness for his mother. "I'm not going anywhere!" The tension in the room boiled over, and before he knew it, the man lunged forward, grabbing Cristiano by the collar. "You're coming with us, kid!" In that moment, everything shifted. The door flew open, and Sarah Collins rushed in, flanked by Agent Lisa Harper. "FBI! Let him go!" she shouted, her voice commanding. The three men froze, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion. Sarah and Lisa quickly moved in, their badges flashing in the dim light. The men exchanged panicked glances, and Cristiano's heart raced with hope. Maybe they would be saved after all. "Get on the ground," Lisa commanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. The men hesitated, but one of them reached for a weapon tucked into his waistband. In a split second, chaos erupted. Sarah and Lisa sprang into action, tackling the nearest man to the ground. Cristiano's breath caught in his throat as he saw the struggle unfold. "Mum, get back!" he yelled, instinctively moving toward her. The remaining two men launched themselves towards Sarah and Lisa, and Cristiano felt a surge of adrenaline. He had to help. "Leo, grab something!" he shouted, spotting a heavy chair nearby. Without thinking, he picked up the chair and swung it at one of the men, catching him off guard. The man stumbled, and Cristiano felt a rush of power. "Get away from us!" he shouted. As the chaos continued, Sarah managed to subdue one of the attackers, while Lisa grappled with another. The fight was intense, and Cristiano watched, his heart racing, as his mother stood by, horrified but ready to help. Finally, with one last effort, Sarah and Lisa managed to pin the remaining attackers to the ground, handcuffing them in swift, practiced movements. As the dust settled, Cristiano's heart began to slow, but his mind was still racing with questions. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, turning to Cristiano, her expression shifting from fierce determination to concern. "I'm fine," he gasped, still processing what had just happened. "But what about my mom?" Maria rushed to Cristiano, wrapping her arms around him. "I'm okay, sweetheart," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry you had to see that." The truth was out in the open now, and Cristiano felt a mix of relief and dread. The hidden connections between his family and the crime syndicate were no longer just whispers in the dark. They were real, and the stakes had never been higher. As the agents called for backup, Cristiano realized they were now entangled in something far greater than he had ever imagined. They had uncovered a dangerous conspiracy, and somehow they were right in the middle of it. The mystery deepened, and the road ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, but Cristiano knew one thing for certain. He would fight to protect his family, no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the restaurant was thick with tension as the aftermath of the confrontation settled over the room. Cristiano stood frozen, his heart pounding, staring at the now cuffed men sprawled on the floor. His mother, Maria, clung tightly to him, her face pale but determined. After 6 months in Carnebian, Agent Sarah Collins and Agent Lisa Harper moved swiftly, securing the area and calling for backup. "Are you both okay?" Sarah asked, her eyes scanning the room for any further threats. "I'm fine," Cristiano said, though his voice shook. "But what about them? Are they connected to the syndicate?" Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "Yes, these men are part of the organization we've been investigating. They'll lead us to the higher-ups, but we need to act fast. They'll have friends who won't be happy about this." Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling. "What does this mean for us? Are we safe?" Cristiano felt a wave of protectiveness toward his mother. "We need to get out of here. They can't come back, right?" Before Sarah could respond, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder. But instead of relief, a cold wave of fear washed over Cristiano. What if the men's associates were already on their way? "Listen, we need to move," Sarah said urgently. "The more time we waste, the more dangerous this becomes. We have to get you both to a safe location." Cristiano nodded, but his mind raced. His life had shifted in an instant. Just days ago, he was a kid aiming for a football career, and now he was caught in a web of crime and danger. "What about the documents?" he asked, remembering the envelope they found. "We need to show those to you. Get them," Sarah instructed, her voice sharp but calm. "We need every piece of evidence we can find." Cristiano dashed back to the office, his heart racing. The documents were still lying on the desk, and he snatched the envelope, stuffing it into his backpack. As he turned to leave, a noise caught his attention. A low growl, followed by a thud, came from the back door. He froze, realizing that someone else might be trying to get in. "Cristiano!" Leo's voice called from outside. "Are you okay? Get out!" Cristiano shouted, rushing back to the main area. "We need to go now!" As Leo entered, he looked panicked. "I saw another car pull up outside. There are more of them." A chill ran down Cristiano's spine. "We have to get out of here." The agents moved quickly, ushering Cristiano and Maria toward the back exit. They burst through the door into the alley, the night air cold and sharp against their skin. They could hear the sirens growing closer, but the threat from the syndicate felt even nearer. "Where do we go?" Maria asked, her voice trembling. "We'll take you to a safe house," Sarah said, her expression resolute. "But we need to move quickly. Stay close to me." They darted down the alley, the sound of footsteps echoing behind them. Cristiano could feel the adrenaline surging through his veins. They reached a side street, and Sarah signaled for them to stop. "Listen," she said, her voice low but urgent. "We're going to split up. I need to buy us some time. You and your mother head to the safe house. Leo, stay with them." Cristiano's heart sank at the thought of separating. "No, we can't leave you." "Trust me," Sarah said, her eyes fierce. "I'll be right behind you. Just go." With a heavy heart, Cristiano nodded, knowing there was no other choice. "Okay, we'll meet you at the safe house." As they turned to leave, Sarah grabbed Cristiano's arm. "And Cristiano, keep that envelope safe. It's more important than you know." They ran down the street, Maria's hand gripping Cristiano's tightly. He could hear the distant sound of chaos behind them, but he focused on moving forward, determined to protect his mother. They reached a small, nondescript building that served as the safe house. The door swung open, revealing a modest interior, with a few chairs and a table. Sarah had arranged for the place to be secure, but Cristiano still felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. "Are we safe here?" Maria asked, looking around nervously. "For now," Leo said, trying to reassure them. "We just need to wait for Sarah." Cristiano nodded, but doubt crept in. They were out of immediate danger, but what if Sarah didn't make it? What if those men had friends who were already on their way? Minutes felt like hours as they waited in anxious silence. Cristiano paced the small room, his mind racing. What had he gotten himself into? Just days ago he was focused on football, and now he was in the middle of a crime investigation with his mother's safety at stake. Suddenly the door flung open, and Sarah rushed in, her face flushed. "We need to go. Now!" "What happened?" Cristiano asked, panic rising in his chest. "They're coming," she said urgently. "I managed to hold them off for a little while, but they're coordinated. We need to move before they find this place." Without waiting for a response, Sarah led them back out into the street. Cristiano felt his heart race as they stepped into the cool night air. They moved quickly, following Sarah as she navigated the darkened streets, keeping close to the shadows. "Where are we going?" Maria asked, her voice shaking. "To a more secure location," Sarah replied, her expression grim. "We can't risk staying in one place for too long." As they turned a corner, they came face to face with a group of men standing in the street, blocking their path. The sight sent a jolt of fear through Cristiano. They were the same men from the restaurant. "Looks like the little football star has some friends," one of the men sneered. "Stay behind me," Sarah ordered, stepping protectively in front of Maria and Cristiano. "Let them go," one of the men said, crossing his arms. "We don't have any business with you, Agent Collins." "But the kid, he's a problem." Cristiano felt a surge of defiance. "I'm not a problem. You're the ones who are in the wrong." "Brave words for a kid who doesn't know what he's dealing with," the man retorted, stepping closer. "You have no idea what you're stumbling into. Back off!" Sarah shouted, her voice commanding. "You're not taking them." The men laughed, but Cristiano saw the tension in their eyes. They were dangerous, and they knew it. "Let's make a deal," the leader said, looking directly at Sarah. "You hand over the kid, and we'll forget this ever happened. Otherwise, things are going to get messy." Cristiano's heart raced. Fyodor and Snarsky came yelling for him, his arms and legs flailing. He couldn't let them take him or his mother. "You won't get away with this," he shouted. "Enough," Sarah snapped, her voice sharp. "You think you can intimidate us. We have evidence against you. You're going down." But the men didn't flinch. Instead, they exchanged glances. And Cristiano felt a sudden jolt of fear. They were not afraid of Sarah. In fact, they seemed to relish the confrontation. Before he could react, the leader lunged forward and grabbed Cristiano, pulling him away from Sarah and Maria. "You're coming with us," he said, a cruel grin spreading across his face. "Let him go!" Maria screamed, her voice filled with panic. "Mom!" Cristiano shouted, struggling against the man's grip. But the other men moved in, surrounding them. In an instant, the situation escalated. Sarah lunged forward. But the leader shoved Cristiano in front of him, using him as a shield. "You want him? Come and get him," he taunted. "Stop." "Don't hurt him," Sarah pleaded, her eyes betraying her fear. Cristiano felt a wave of despair wash over him. The darkness of the situation engulfed him, and he realized just how powerless he was. Suddenly, everything he had fought for, his dreams, his family, seemed to hang by a thread. Then, just as it felt like all hope was lost, a loud siren blared in the distance, growing closer by the second. The men exchanged nervous glances, and for a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in their eyes. "Backup is coming," Sarah shouted, panicking yet uncertain voices. "Backup is coming," Sarah shouted, realizing that he had to back up on the staircase. The men exchanged nervous glances, and for a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in their eyes. Executioner's slow-moving police barricades, stacked across the pavement. Police barricades hung. "You won't get away." In that instant, chaos erupted. The men began to scatter, but the leader held tight to Cristiano, dragging him backward. "We'll see you again, kid," he sneered, before turning to flee. "Cristiano!" Maria screamed, reaching for him, but the moment shattered as the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Just as Cristiano felt himself being pulled away, Sarah lunged forward, grabbing his arm. "Hold on!" she yelled, pulling him free from the man's grip. In that split second, everything changed. The men fled into the shadows, disappearing into the night, leaving Cristiano breathless and shaken. He turned to his mother, who rushed to his side, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Cristiano nodded, though he felt anything but fine. The gravity of what had just happened settled over him, a dark moment in which he almost lost everything he held dear. But as the sirens drew closer, a new twist emerged. Just when it seemed like they were safe, the leader of the men stepped out from the shadows again, a sinister smile on his face. "You think this is over? This is just the beginning." With those chilling words, he vanished into the night, leaving Cristiano and his family in a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The realization hit hard. The danger was far from over. They were now tangled in a web of crime and conspiracy, and the fight to protect their lives had only just begun. Gig mamalai. I thought they were tied them in the air with palpable as Cristiano. "We need to talk. Dealhouse." The sirens had faded, but the chaos. "No, I'll stay here," and entangled in a dangerous game that could cost them everything. "Cristiano, we need to talk." Sarah said goodbye to the sirens. "We need to talk," Sarah said. "Let's not... No, not alone. We can't afford any more surprises. The men we encountered tonight are just the tip of the iceberg. We have to understand what we're dealing with." Cristiano nodded, his heart racing. "What did you mean when you said my mother might be involved? How deep does this go?" Maria stood nearby, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "I have no idea what they were talking about, Cristiano. I've worked hard to keep you safe. I promise you, I'm innocent." "Mom, I believe you," he said, stepping closer to her. "But we need to figure out who's behind this. What do those documents mean?" Sarah opened the envelope they had found earlier, carefully laying the papers on the table. "These names," she said, pointing to the list, "they belong to local business owners. Some are clean, but others, they're connected to the syndicate. We need to dig deeper into this. Why would anyone want to involve my mother?" Cristiano demanded, his voice rising. "She's just trying to run a restaurant." "That's precisely why," Sarah replied, locking eyes with him. "Your mother's restaurant is a hub. It's a place where people gather, and it could be used for money laundering or as a front for their operations. If someone saw her as a threat, or a potential informant, they could target her." The weight of her words settled heavily on Cristiano. "So, it's not just about me wanting to play football. It's about my entire family being in danger." "Yes," Sarah confirmed, her expression grave. "And if we don't act quickly, we risk losing everything." A heavy silence enveloped the room. Cristiano felt a mix of anger and helplessness. He had always dreamed of a life where he could make his mother proud, but now reality had taken a dark turn. "Then what do we do?" Leo, asked Naish. Darwa Caronal, Naish, Cristiano Tegliosi, Naish, General de Kazi, Roy de Gedo Swat. Naish, they're so calling the strings, Sarah said, her tone resolute. We'll use the names in these documents, Cristiano said. Are you sure we can trust you? Cristiano asked, his skepticism rising. Are you sure we can trust you? Cristiano asked, his skepticism rising. Naish, viento do. What? If this is all part of a bigger plan? Cristiano, Sarah replied. His eyes steady. I'm risking everything to protect you and your mother. I promise you, I'm on your side. After a long pause, Cristiano took a deep breath. Okay, let's do it. Let's find out who's behind this. Together. They spent the next few hours piecing together the information from the documents, plus the piles on the dice. Sarah's expertise shone through as she guided them, her focus sharp and unwavering. As they worked, Cristiano felt a sense of purpose growing within him. Despite the fear that had gripped him just hours before, he was determined to take control of the situation. He would protect his family, no matter the cost. Suddenly, Maria gasped, pointing to one of the names on the list. Wait, I know this man. He's a regular at the restaurant, Mr. Alvaro. He's always been kind to us. Mr. Alvaro? Sarah echoed, her eyebrows furrowing. He's involved with the syndicate. Not directly, Maria said, shaking her head. But he has connections. With some of the suppliers? I didn't think anything of it at the time. He just seemed like a businessman. Cristiano's heart raced. We need to confront him. If he's connected, he might have answers. As they debated their next move, a sudden noise shattered the tension. A loud bang echoed from outside, followed by shouting. Get down, Sarah commanded. They all dropped to the floor, hearts pounding as they listened to the chaos unfold outside. It's them, Leo whispered, his eyes wide with fear. They've found us. Cristiano felt a surge of panic. What do we do? We can't stay here. We'll have to go out the back. Sarah said, her voice calm despite the chaos. We need to find a way to escape and get to Mr. Alvaral before it's too late. As they crept toward the back entrance, Cristiano felt a mix of dread and determination. They were living a nightmare, but he wouldn't give up. He had to protect his family. They slipped out the back door, the cool night air hitting them like a wave. In the distance, the sounds of shouting and chaos continued. They needed to move quickly. Where's your car? Sarah asked, scanning the area. It's parked around the corner, Maria said, her voice trembling. But we can't attract attention. Let's go, Sarah urged, leading the way. They darted into the alley, moving stealthily toward the car. The sound of a terrace falling to the ground startled Maria. She shut away the thought, her love for her son retreating. The flames Cristiano could feel his heart racing as they approached the vehicle, the stakes higher than ever. Just as they reached the car, a shadow loomed behind them. Cristiano spun around, his heart dropping. It was one of the men from the syndicate, his eyes cold and calculating. You thought you could escape? The man sneered, stepping closer. You're in over your heads. Get in, Sarah shouted, pushing Cristiano and his mother toward the car. Leo fumbled with the door, his hands shaking. Go, 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 Cristiano yelled, urgency surging through him. As they piled into the car, the man lunged forward, grabbing the door handle. Sarah slammed the door shut, just in time, but he was already trying to pull it open. Start the engine, Sarah shouted, her voice sharp. We need to get out of here. Cristiano's heart raced as he watched the man struggle with the door. Leo fumbled with the keys, finally managing to start the engine. Drive! Cristiano yelled, his voice filled with desperation. With a loud roar, they sped off down the street, leaving the chaos behind. But as they turned the corner, the man shouted after them, "You can't run forever!" As they drove, the reality of what had just happened began to settle in. Cristiano's hands shook on the steering wheel, the adrenaline still coursing through him. They were safe for now, but the danger was far from over. "Where do we go?" Maria asked, her voice shaky. "Mr. Alvaro's place," Sarah replied, her expression determined. "He might have answers, and we need to warn him." Cristiano nodded, gripping the wheel tightly. "We'll figure this out. We have to." They arrived at Mr. Alvaro's house, a modest building on the outskirts of town. Cristiano felt a mix of hope and dread as they approached. Would he be able to help them? Sarah knocked on the door, urgency in her demeanor. After a moment, an older man appeared, his face lined with concern. "Sarah, what's going on?" "Mr. Alvaro, we need your help," Sarah said, her voice intense. "It's urgent." As they entered the house, Cristiano felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. This was it, the moment of truth. Would they find the river they needed? Once inside, Sarah quickly explained their situation. Mr. Alvaro listened intently, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "I had no idea it had gotten this far," he said, shaking his head. "I've seen things, but I didn't want to believe it. What do you know?" Cristiano asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Please, we need to understand." Mr. Alvaro sighed, running a hand through his hair. "There have been whispers about a new leader in the syndicate, someone ruthless. They've been expanding their operations, and I fear they might be targeting anyone who poses a threat." "What does that mean for us?" Maria asked, her voice grave. "It means you're in danger," Mr. Alvaro replied, his eyes grave. "If they think you know anything, they won't hesitate to come after you." Cristiano felt a wave of fear wash over him. They were not just caught in a web of crime, they were now targets. But just as hope seemed to fade, Mr. Alvaro leaned closer. "However, I do have a plan. There's a way to expose them, to gather evidence that could bring them down." Cristiano's heart raced. "What do we need to do?" "You'll need to infiltrate their operation, discover who's really behind it all. If we can gather enough evidence, we can take them down for good." The stakes had never been higher, and uncertainty loomed ahead, but Cristiano felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. They were not powerless. They could fight back. "Let's do it," he said, determination filling his voice. "We'll find a way to stop them." Together, they began to craft their plan, knowing that the battle ahead would be fraught with danger. But in that moment, as they united against a common enemy, Cristiano realized that they were stronger together. The truth had been revealed, and although the road ahead was uncertain, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in wait. They had a mission now, a chance to reclaim their lives and protect their family, no matter the cost. As they huddled together in Mr. Alvaro's modest living room, a palpable sense of urgency filled the air. Cristiano felt his heart pounding as he listened to the plan unfold. It was risky, but the stakes were too high to back down now. They needed to gather evidence and expose the crime syndicate before it was too late. "First, we need to identify where their operations are based," Mr. Alvaro explained. "I've heard whispers about a warehouse on the outskirts of town. That's where they might be storing their illicit goods and conducting business." Cristiano glanced at his mother and Leo. They all understood the gravity of the situation. "What do we do once we get there?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fears swirling inside him. "We'll have to be careful," Sarah interjected, her expression serious. "We need to go in quietly." Gather whatever evidence we can and get out without being seen. If they catch us, it could be dangerous." "I can't let you do this alone," Maria said, her voice firm. "I want to help." "Mom, it's too dangerous," Cristiano protested, his heart racing. "I can't risk your safety. I'm not going to sit by while you put yourselves in danger," she insisted, her eyes fierce. "I've spent my whole life protecting you. Now it's my turn to fight for our family." Cristiano felt a swell of pride mixed with fear. He knew his mother was strong, but this was a different world. "Okay, but we need to stick together," he said, looking at the group. "If we do this, we do it as a team. If we do this, we do it as a team." With their plan in place, they gathered supplies, flashlights, a camera for evidence, and whatever they could find that might help them in the field. Cristiano couldn't shake the feeling of dread as they prepared to confront the unknown. But he also felt a flicker of hope. They were taking control of their fate. As night fell, they drove toward the warehouse, the streets of Funchal eerily quiet. The further they went, the more tension filled the air. Cristiano could see the warehouse looming in the distance, an imposing structure shrouded in darkness. "Remember, we need to be silent," Sarah whispered as they parked a few blocks away. "Stay alert and don't draw attention to yourselves." They approached the warehouse cautiously, the shadows swallowing them as they slipped through a gap in the fence. Cristiano's heart raced with every step. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Once inside, they were met with the sight of crates stacked high, scattered throughout the dimly lit space. The atmosphere was thick with the smell of oil and something else he couldn't identify. "Let's split up," Sarah suggested. "Cristiano and Leo, you check the left side. Maria and I will look over here. We'll meet back in 10 minutes. Cristiano nodded, though he felt a sense of trepidation. The darkness felt alive around them, and he could hear faint noises coming from deeper within the warehouse. They moved quietly, stepping lightly as they searched for anything that could provide evidence of the syndicate's operations. As they crept through the shadows, Cristiano and Leo scanned the area. They found boxes labeled with unfamiliar logos and names, but nothing that seemed directly connected to the crime syndicate. "Over here," Leo whispered suddenly, pointing to a door slightly ajar at the far end of the warehouse. "Let's check that out." They approached cautiously, pushing the door open just enough to peek inside. The room was dimly lit, and as they stepped in, Cristiano's breath caught in his throat. It was filled with stacks of cash, guns, and various illegal goods. It was like something out of a movie, but this was real life, and it was terrifying. "Wow, this is insane," Leo breathed, eyes wide. "We need to get pictures of this." Cristiano nodded, pulling out the camera they had brought along. He snapped photos of the room, capturing evidence of the syndicate's activities. Just as they were finishing, a sudden noise made them freeze. "Did you hear that?" Cristiano whispered, his heart racing. "Yeah," Leo replied, his eyes wide with fear. "It sounded like footsteps." Panic surged through Cristiano as they realized they weren't alone. They quickly ducked behind a stack of crates, holding their breath as they listened. The footsteps grew closer, and then they saw shadows moving in the dim light. "It's them," Leo whispered, fear evident in his voice. "We need to get out of here." Before they could make a move, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a suit, flanked by two more men. Cristiano recognized him immediately. It was the leader from earlier. "Looks like we've caught ourselves some little mice," Leo said. Looking round here, Cristiano's heart sank. They had been discovered. "We're not doing anything," he stammered, trying to sound brave. "Just looking for some supplies." The man laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the room. "You think I'm going to believe that? You're in over your heads, kid. Why don't you come out and make this easy?" As the men moved closer, Cristiano felt a wave of panic. "Leo, we have to go," he whispered urgently. But just as they prepared to make a run for it, the door burst open, and Sarah and Maria rushed in, eyes wide with alarm. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, moving to shield Maria. "Looks like you brought reinforcements," the leader taunted, his smile widening. "How quaint. Let them go," Sarah demanded, her voice firm. "This is over." "Not yet," the leader replied, his tone mocking. "You're the one who's in over your head, Agent Collins. You think you can just waltz in here and disrupt our operation?" Cristiano felt the weight of the situation crashing down on him. They were outnumbered, and fear flooded his veins. But then he remembered the evidence they had gathered, the photos, the documents. They were fighting for their lives, and they had to stand their ground. "Enough!" Cristiano shouted, surprising himself with the strength of his voice. "You can't intimidate us. We know what you're doing, and we'll make sure everyone finds out." The leader's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his face. "You think you can expose us? Do you even know what you're up against?" Cristiano took a deep breath, feeling a surge of courage. "We're not afraid of you. We'll fight back." In that moment, Maria stepped forward, her voice steadier than Cristiano had ever heard. "You may think you're powerful, but you're nothing without fear. We're not afraid of you anymore. Our family is stronger than your threats." The leader's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake." But just as he spoke, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder. The leader's expression shifted to one of panic. "Back up!" he shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to get out of here." In that instant, everything changed. The tension that had filled the room snapped, and chaos erupted. The men scrambled to escape, but Sarah and Maria moved quickly, blocking the door. "Now!" Sarah shouted, her voice commanding. "Get the evidence!" Cristiano and Leo sprang into action, grabbing the camera and snapping more photos of the room. They documented everything. The cash, the weapons, the crates filled with illegal goods. As they worked, the leader turned, his face twisted with rage. "You won't get away with this," he shouted, backpedaling toward the exit. But just as he reached the door, the sound of police officers bursting in echoed through the warehouse. "FBI, freeze!" they shouted, guns drawn. The men froze, realizing their escape route had been cut off. The leader's expression shifted from anger to desperation as he looked around. "Trap. Get down on the ground," one of the officers ordered, and the men complied. Knowing there was no way out, Cristiano's heart raced as he watched the scene unfold. They had done it. They had exposed the syndicate. The evidence was in their hands, and justice was finally within reach. As the officers cuffed the men, Sarah turned to Cristiano and Maria, her expression filled with relief. "You did it. You all did it. We have the proof we need." Tears of relief filled Maria's eyes as she hugged Cristiano tightly. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You were so brave." Cristiano felt of emotion. They had faced their fears and fought back. This was their victory, and they had come out stronger on the other side. As the officers began to gather the evidence, Cristiano looked at Leo, who had a wide grin on his face. "I can't believe we did it." "Neither can I," Cristiano replied, his heart still racing. "But we did." Together. As the adrenaline began to fade, Cristiano realized that this experience had changed him forever. He had faced danger, fought for his family, and discovered a strength within himself that he never knew existed. The battle wasn't over. The fight to protect their family would continue. But in this moment, Cristiano knew they could face whatever came next. They had each other, and that made all the difference. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow over the warehouse, Cristiano felt a sense of hope for the future. They had taken back their lives, and now they could finally look forward to a brighter tomorrow. As the sun rose over Funchal, casting a golden light over the city, Cristiano and his family stood outside the warehouse, watching as law enforcement officers led the captured members of the crime syndicate away in handcuffs. The air was filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. They had faced danger and emerged victorious, but the reality of their ordeal still lingered in their minds. Cristiano turned to his mother, Maria, who stood beside him, her eyes reflecting pride and exhaustion. "We did it, Mom. We really did it," he said, a smile breaking through the tension that had gripped them for so long. "Yes, we did," she replied, her voice filled with warmth. "You were so brave, Cristiano. I'm so proud of you." Just then Sarah approached them, her expression serious but relieved. "You both showed incredible courage. The evidence you gathered will help bring down the entire syndicate." "This is just the beginning." Cristiano nodded, feeling a sense of purpose swell within him. "What happens next?" "We'll continue the investigation," Sarah explained. "With what we've uncovered, we can dismantle their operations and ensure they don't come back. But it's not over yet. There are still people involved who need to be brought to justice." As they spoke, Leo emerged from the warehouse, a look of exhilaration on his face. "You won't believe it. They found a ledger with names and connections. This could expose an even bigger network." "Really?" Cristiano asked, excitement bubbling inside him. "That's amazing. Yeah, this could be huge," Leo replied, grinning from ear to ear. As they celebrated their success, Cristiano felt a new sense of hope for the future. They had faced their fears and fought back against a powerful enemy. Together they could overcome anything. But, just as they were about to leave, a shadow fell over them. The leader of the syndicate, still unrepentant, was being escorted away when he caught Cristiano's eye. A smirk spread across his face, and he leaned closer to one of the officers. "Enjoy your little victory, kid," he sneered. "You have no idea what's coming." Cristiano's heart sank as the words hung in the air, a chilling reminder that their battle might not be over. But before he could react, the officer pulled the man away, leading him to a waiting vehicle. "Forget him," Sarah said, her tone firm. "We've got the evidence we need, and we'll make sure he's held accountable." Despite her reassurance, Cristiano felt a knot in his stomach. The leader's words echoed in his mind, a warning that there were still dangers lurking in the shadows. As they made their way back to the car, Cristiano glanced at his mother, who was talking to Leo. He realized how much they had all grown through this ordeal. They were no longer just a mother and son. They were warriors, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Once inside the car, Maria turned to Cristiano, her expression filled with love. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together. You're my strength, Cristiano." He smiled back, feeling a sense of unity and resilience. "We will, Mom." Together. As they drove away from the warehouse, a sense of hope filled the air. They had fought for their family, uncovered the truth, and taken the first steps toward a safer future. But as the sun rose higher in the sky, Cristiano couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still lurking. Hours later, back at home, Cristiano sat at his desk, staring at the photos they had taken of the evidence. The adrenaline from earlier had faded, leaving him with a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. He picked it up, and a message flashed on the screen. It was from an unknown number. "You think this is over? We're just getting started." Cristiano's heart raced as he read the message, a chill running down his spine. The leader's warning had been a threat, and now it felt all too real. He quickly turned to his mother, who was in the kitchen. "Mom, we need to talk. I just got a message." As he shared the news, a sense of urgency filled the room. They had fought hard, but it was clear that their fight was far from finished. With the knowledge that danger still loomed, Cristiano realized they would need to stay vigilant. But as they prepared for whatever came next, one thing was clear: they were ready to face the challenge together. The bond between them had never been stronger, forged in the fires of adversity. With newfound determination, Cristiano picked up his football, a symbol of hope and resilience. He knew that no matter what lay ahead, he would always fight for his family, his dreams, and the truth. He dribbled the ball across the living room floor. A sense of clarity washed over him. They would not be defined by fear. They would rise to meet whatever came their way, ready to protect what mattered most. The battle might not be over, but they were stronger than ever, and together they would face the future, come what may.